Hello, my name is Salma and welcome to my channel. If you would like to book a personal reading, you can contact me at tattoosandtarot@gmail.com, or you can look up my personal website, which is tattoosandtarot.com, and you can see what other services I have to offer with regard to readings. In any case, I hope you enjoy your monthly Taroscope reading, and any questions that you have, feel free to message me. All right, have a good one. Bye. Hello Libra, how are you? Here is your July 2017 reading. And Libras, y'all are my air sign siblings. I love y'all. And very charming, very, typical Libra description, right? But I was kind of thinking, just holding the cards and reflecting on Libra for this month, and I had an image of somebody like with their arms open wide like this, and they're just feeling themselves, and they're just like, yes, honey. And I heard the word grandiose, maybe a little bit larger than life, right? And Libra, you all tend to be a little bit idealistic, right? Especially being an air sign, there's this idealistic thinking, this idealistic kind of very kind of unrealistic sometimes, especially with regards to relationships, and the idealized parts of life, right? Like love, romance, harmony, the beautiful things in life, luxury. Libra tends to there needs to be a balance of how those things are approached and viewed in the chart of somebody that has a lot of Libra, or has a sun Libra. And I did some astrological, I looked up kind of what's going on for you all in the sky, and Jupiter is in your first house. So I thought it was kind of funny that I envisioned somebody kind of like, yes, I'm bigger than life. Because Jupiter is the planet of expansion. It's the planet of good luck, good fortune, expansiveness, how we grow. Wherever Jupiter is, it wants us to expand that part of ourselves. It wants us to grow, and it wants us to and sometimes Jupiter can be a bit excessive. Not sometimes. Jupiter is a bit excessive, if not put in check. And so Jupiter being in your first house, which represents our relationship to ourselves and how we view ourselves, our relationships to our bodies, our relationship to our self-esteem. Well, that's more second house, but you get what I mean. Like the first house represents kind of what, how we, like our relationship with ourselves. And it's also what we kind of project out into the world around us, being the home of the rising sign too. And so Jupiter in your first house, there could, it could bring about, it could bring about, good luck and good fortune when it comes to things regarding your identity, things regarding, how you assert yourself in the world, things regarding your body, but it also could represent growth and expansion and your idea of who you are, growth and expansion beyond those attachments and beyond those beliefs that you've carried about who you are, and who, like, what limiting beliefs you have. Jupiter wants to break away from those limiting beliefs and wants to grow and wants to expand beyond that. So that's definitely happening in your first house, right? And Jupiter is also in Libra. Like Jupiter, being in first house, it's in Libra. So, really asking Librans or, people with their sun sign in Libra, with a lot of Libra in their chart, to really just start to expand and to grow and develop and to think bigger, think big, think beyond like your idea of self, your idea of who you are, even like as a Libra, like what does that mean to you? And and like, yeah, the Libra aspects of who you are being really kind of exaggerated at this time. And Jupiter is also in this month is also going to it's going to oppose Uranus, which is Uranus is in Aries and it's in your seventh house, right? And seventh house, as a opposite from the first house, is the first house being the house of self, seventh house being the house of, well, how do I get along in one-on-one relationships? So being the house of partnership, and more so one-on-one partnership, not just marriage or romance, right? Like not just those quote unquote contracts, but like business, our important one-on-one relationships, contracts, how we harmonize with other people. Yeah, right. And also being, the house that rules Libra, right? The balancing act of two elements, right, that are essentially can be seen as opposite. How do these two elements balance out? And with Uranus being there, Uranus being the planet of the energies of Uranus, representing change, revolution, the unexpected, the offbeat, things that don't really fit within the status quo. So when Uranus is in the house of a partnership, right, like maybe experiencing partnerships that are not very conventional, especially especially with Uranus being in Aries, right? Like, an Aries being your opposing sign, the Aries being a very self-asserting, I don't want to say self-centered, because that's not what I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean it in a way that Aries is very good at self-preservation. Aries is very good at putting themselves first when they need to be first. Aries is very good at self-assertion. Whereas Libra is, you guys are always trying to figure out how can everybody be happy in a situation, right? And that's just like, a general description. That's not all Libras, right? Depending on, you could have a Libra sun and have Aries everywhere else in your chart and be very geared towards self-preservation, right? And self-assertion. But in the context of astrology and what the different signs and symbols mean, Libra is about balance and how can two get along, and Aries is like, I'm going for it. No one else is gonna have my back except for me. I gotta assert myself. I gotta do this. I gotta go for it. And Libra kind of just wants to go with the flow of things. And so with Uranus being in Aries and all that happening in your seventh house, right? Experiencing relationships that are very different and almost kind of opposite to what you're normally used to engaging in partnerships, right? So maybe having a partner who is very independent, who's very Aries-like, which is very different and very kind of out of the box and not normal for you to be experienced, for you to behave individually, maybe attracting partners that don't really reflect how you would normally behave in a partnership, right? And so it just asking you, that opposition between Jupiter and Uranus is really asking you to view, like how far are you willing to go? Like, how much are you willing to expand in terms of allowing these very non-normative or very different ideas of relationships to come into your partnership sector? Like, how much do you want to grow in your partnership sector? And then that growth might require that you encounter a partner or a relationship that is very different, right, than the very harmonizing, very go with the flow energies of a Libra, and maybe more about independence, maybe more about asserting the self, asserting your own needs. Even if you might hurt somebody else's feelings, you might have to get a little bit Aries, got to get some Aries gusto going. And also we have Pluto in your fourth house, right? And Pluto being the planet of transformation and death and rebirth and symbolic death and, things hidden, things, being the underworld, like things that are unknown, things that are hidden, the occult practices, like astrology, like tarot, spiritual practices sometimes fall under, right, that eighth house, Pluto, Scorpio, kind of energy. And transiting into your fourth house, right, like fourth house being home, security, the things that we know, the things that are comfortable for us, you know, our roots, where we feel most safe and secure, right? That Cancer in the crab shell. And Pluto really coming in, and Pluto, like the Tower card, right? Wanting to shake things up. And Pluto is, you know, Pluto is very drastic and very in your face kind of transformations. Pluto is not a comfortable energy. Pluto is a very uncomfortable, transformative energy, right? And so there may be areas in your home life that are being shaken up, areas in your home life or areas of that, you know, areas that represent security to you, and those things are changing drastically. Those things may, you know, it's kind of like Pluto wants you to, it's almost like Pluto wants you to realize that you're fine without them. You're fine without these security blankets, and we're going to show you, but we're not going to show you in a nice kind of easygoing way. We're going to show you in a way that's going to shake things up a bit. And Pluto is also going to be squaring Jupiter, which is in your first house, right? So Jupiter squaring Pluto so Jupiter in your first house squaring Pluto in your fourth house, that can also represent really drastic and transformational changes regarding your self-image, and regarding, you know, the limitations of how you view yourself, and your growth. Pluto might ask you to grow in a very difficult and very transformative way this month. And, you know, last but certainly not least, you have a stellium happening in your 10th house. And a stellium basically is when you have 3 or more. Some astrologers say 4 or more, but I'm going to go with 3 or more. When 3 or more planets are, you know, in a sign or in a house. And so you're going to have Sun, Mars, and Mercury, all 3 in Cancer in your 10th house. I believe Cancer, I believe Mercury's in Cancer. If I'm wrong about that, I'm sorry about that. But I know that Mercury is entering Leo pretty soon. So we have, you know, these 3 planets in your 10th house, and the 10th house representing career, representing, you know, your status in the public world, the work that your identity is attached to, the work that you do because there is an attachment, or there's a connection between your identity and who you believe yourself to be, right? Like there's work that I do to go to work and pay the bills, and then there's work that I do because it's a part of, you know, who I believe myself to be, right? So the work that I do from Monday through Thursday is the work that I do to be responsible and pay the bills, right? And then the work that I do Friday through Sunday, you know, and sitting here with you all and reading cards, or, you know, tattooing people and painting, that's work that my identity is attached to, essentially. So there's a lot of energy building up in your 10th house. And so it's basically, you know, with Sun, Mars, and Mercury being there, right? There's a reevaluation of what you revolve your work around, being the sun, right? Like the sun is what we revolve kind of around and what our ambitions represent. Mars being our will, how we go about getting our ambitions, right? How we go about getting the things that we want. And then Mercury, you know, meaning how we're communicating that. Are we gathering information? Like, is there information that you need to gather regarding your career? Do you need to go and learn a new skill in order to move forward, in order to get what you want with your career? You know, are you communicating with the right people in order to get what you want regarding the ambitions for your career? Like, what are you doing? Because 10th house is very important to you all right now. So what are you doing to what are you doing to get to make advances in your career? What are you doing to get to the places that you want to be in the public, in your public sphere? And that stellium is going to square Jupiter in your first house again. You know, so once again, also asking you, like, how is the expansion, right? Like, again, Jupiter in this first house Libra theme of, like, how is this energy of, like, growth and expansion and learning about who you are and and what you're doing in this world, like how is that helping you kind of, you know, move forward with your career? Sorry, that was really long. I'm gonna put a note in the description box if you just want to get to the reading. But yeah, that's just a piece of what's kind of going on in the Libra sky right now. So career is a big deal, self-image, not so much self-image, but your relationship to yourself is a big deal and how you're moving past that. Home, changes in the home. Yeah, changes in the home are a big deal. Knight of Swords. Here you guys are. Here y'all are. Knight of Swords. Gung-ho. Just going for it. I hope you all are thinking before you're acting, though. Some of you probably know. It's okay. Okay. Here we go. I'm feeling guided towards sort of focusing this reading more so on like relationships, and I think because there's that big relationship happening in your 1st and 7th house. There's that opposition happening between Jupiter and Uranus, and also you being ruled by the 7th house and ruled by Venus. That, you know, relationships are, relationships are a relationships can be a big theme for Libras. Okay, there. There's people. There's a lot of people. Yeah. Maybe a lot of suitors. Maybe just a lot of sides of Libra coming out, right? Like the expansion, that Jupiter energy, that Jupiter expansiveness is coming out, and is Jupiter expansiveness is asking you to do things a little differently, maybe, and it's kind of bringing out a lot of different archetypes within you, a lot of different. Yeah. Okay. That keeps happening whenever I pull out kind of the last slot. Oh, you have the lovers. The lovers. Yeah, that balancing out, right? Yeah, I'm definitely feeling like this might be a relationship geared reading. So here, let me show you the cards. So this is what we've got going on. We've got 2 knights. We've got lots of people. We've got the Empress. We've got the Queen of Wands. We got this guy here. This guy's always interesting for me. Okay, so let's start. All right, so Knight of Swords. Being an air sign, this energy is very familiar, right, to you all. The Knight of Swords energy, fast-moving, fast-paced. The Knight of Swords, you know, although being an air sign, I tend to think of Libra as kind of like a cool, you know, kind of autumn breeze, and not, you know, a fast-paced, you know, summer, spring blowdown. So, excuse me. So, Knight of Swords, right? And, you know, I've said this before in I think a previous reading that I did, but the Knight of Swords is incredibly fast-moving, incredibly quick-witted, but sometimes I question the integrity of the Knight of Swords. Sometimes I wonder, you know, what is being disguised or hidden behind all of this speed and this quick wit? Like, what is not being revealed in the name of maintaining, like, right, this speed, or like what's being hidden away, is essentially kind of, and you know, yeah, there's like this, I mean, what I said before when I pulled out cards, with this very kind of grandiose, like, this very grandiose kind of idea of self, or this very, I also feel like this Knight of Swords is just kind of gets really gung-ho about things and wants to get moving and doesn't really stop to reflect and think before they get moving. They just kind of get moving. And sometimes there's a lot of reliance on the intellect and on the mind, right? Which is where our ego lives, which is where the ego likes to hang out, is in the mind, right? And sometimes too much, dependence or reliance on that ego-based mind can create problems in our relationships, can create problems in our relationship and having a realistic relationship with ourselves. So yeah, I definitely feel that this Knight of Swords is not really thinking before he's acting. And though he carries some great ideas, right, sometimes, being an air sign, we run the risk of those ideas just kind of staying in the mental plane, in the mental world, right? We have the Nine of Wands, and this card for me is a card of I almost feel like the relationship between these two is that, like, the Knight of Swords, is trekking along and is moving fast and is thinking before and is thinking and is doing before, and it's just kind of not really, is lacking some awareness, is not acting with the most integrity, and it's causing some blockages, it's causing some problems, it's causing some disharmony, some mishaps in relationships. It's called, like I said before, when I pull this card, especially in like a romantic spread, and sorry if I'm kind of all over the place right now, I'm just kind of tapping into the reading, but the Knight of Swords, like I said before, I kind of question his integrity, I question his staying power, I question his ability to stick around, I question his ability to, to be balanced, right? Like it's almost like, yes, like, Libra is air, Libra is ruled by intellect, but still, there is this part of Libra that, you don't really get in a Gemini or an Aquarius, where a Libra is really able to not only recognize both sides of a situation, but to actually really be able to try to balance it out. And I question the ability of this this Knight of Swords to be able to kind of hear, right? Like when you're moving that fast, can you hear both sides of a situation, or are you just sort of running? Are you running? And is what you're running from, right? Like the potential of like the bruising of the ego, like is what you're running from, the realization that you may not have acted in the best integrity, or that you may not have acted in your true authentic self, right? That in replacement of the authentic self, you've just kind of relied, which the authentic self, right? Like, or a balanced self doesn't only, because who we are authentically is a spirit in a body, right? Like we're just these bodies that are carrying these spirits, right? But, in a balanced sense of who we are, yes, the mind can be great, and the mind can help us get out of some sticky situations. And, the intellect is not something that we need to bash or talk badly about. Like the mind is not a bad thing. But when it's used too often, or when it's the only thing that we come to rely on, and we disconnect ourselves emotionally, then we lose touch with that part of ourselves. We lose touch with the heart. We lose touch with that part of ourselves that actually connects us to other human beings. That actually allows us to have empathy, that actually allows us to feel something, right? Like my mind can only go so far whereas my heart and my feelings are just can be infinite, you know? So it's like, what are you running from the realization that, you know, maybe not having acted out in the best of integrity? Like are we running from the realization that maybe we've gotten a little bit out of hand with you know, with that Jupiter energy, that exaggeration, that exaggerated sense of self? Like, are we running from, you know, having a conversation with somebody where we might actually, you know, get hurt, or recognize that like we've hurt another person, or, you know, where our egos may be a little bit bruised, you know, and like we'll get up and keep going because the guy, you know, the person in this card, right? He's on guard, but all of his wands are standing upright. They still got, you know, they've still got growth happening. He's got one in his hand. He's looking out. He's ready. He's ready for he's tired. He's fatigued, but he's ready nonetheless, right? And is there this sense of, you know, kind of running from the inevitable, right? That maybe we haven't acted with the best integrity. Maybe we haven't been the most reliable as of late. Maybe we've been pretty fleeting. Maybe we've gotten away with our thoughts and the ego and the intellect, and we've kind of allowed that to solely direct our actions, and those actions have brought hurt, and those actions also run the risk of kind of leaving us out in the cold, so to speak. And with the Five of Pentacles, when this shows up, you know, it does to me represent, it can represent definitely a relationship. It can represent a relationship where one person feels really left out. Represents a relationship where both people aren't very happy. Both people are out in the cold. They're not happy. And they're refusing to both look up and see the pentacles that are here above them, and that there's warmth and solace and food and water, and, you know, maybe an ear that, you know, a shoulder to cry on, and an ear to listen to, or an ear that will listen, you know, to you, that's, you know, beyond this, you know, stained glass window here. And yeah, there's definitely, you know, some disappointment. There's definitely some recognition that something just isn't working out, right? And maybe that's what this running is about, is that, you know, the running or the swiftly, like because if you look at the spread down here, the knight, his back is turned from this. His back is turned away from this scenario here, right? Where the ego is bruised. There are hurt feelings. A battle has been fought. And still, even after that, there's still this recognition that, like, no one's really happy. There's not, you know, there's not, you know, in the perspective that's being held right now in the relationship or whatever it is, there's kind of this assumption that there's, you know, a lack of abundance. And then next we have the Empress card. And the Empress card, you know, she is Venus. You know, she's very much this is, you know, love, beauty, harmony. She's incredibly fertile. She is, you know, she is the great manifester, that things just kind of gravitate towards her. She brings things towards her. She calls things into her existence. She's just the creator of all. She's the creator of she is the creator of her world, of her environment. You know, and next to this Five of Pentacles card, like I said before, a lot of this also has to do with perspective, right? Like that these people are not looking at that these two people who are here are not looking at the beauty of this Five of Pentacles right here, of what's already here. And this Empress, she recognizes all. She recognizes the beauty in all. She recognizes the abundance and the growth and the fertility in all situations, even if those situations don't, exactly match what it is that we thought, right? Like, even in this, right, going back to Jupiter, going back to the expansion of the first house, going back to the expansion of self and what it is that you're willing to learn, especially as Jupiter opposes your seventh house, right? Like, how will the difficulties and how will the hardships in my relationships, in my one-on-one partnerships, how will these difficulties, how will this lack of harmony, how will this, the situation that is not ideal, that doesn't fit the Libra ideal of what, my love life should look like. How is this situation that just so opposes everything that I stand for as a Libra, right? Like, how, as the lover, as the Libra, like, how does that still show me how to grow and to expand and to learn from and to really just expand and grow, right? Because the Empress, she's fertile, she's forever growing, she is forever growing, things, all of this around her, she's grown herself, she's incredibly fertile, she's a creator, she's a master manifester, and she does it without even really having to think about it or will it or wish it or want it. The Emperor more so is the willer, right? But the Empress is like, yeah, I want this over there, and this is gonna, and oh, it's there, okay. Now I want the Empress is incredibly, sees the beauty and the growth in all, right? And so how can this situation, how can this Five of Pentacles energy, how can this Nine of Wands energy, with regard to relationships and partnerships, how can that really still push you to grow and expand? How can that really push you to learn and to develop and expand your sense of self, right? Like, she's sitting there by herself. She's created all this by herself. And so, sorry, somebody just texted me. So that's kind of the energy that I'm picking up on with the connection between the Five of Pentacles and the Empress. It's like, how can the hardships still cultivate and facilitate growth, and like, how can I plant the seeds? How can I be the alchemist, right? How can I take this and spin it into gold? How can I take this hardship and spin it into a life lesson, or spin it into something that will help me to expand upon my sense of self, right? Next we have the Knight of Cups. And this, I feel like, even though Libra is an air sign, I also definitely see the connection between the Knight of Cups and Libra, right? I'm an air sign. I have, a lot of Gemini friends. I'm an Aquarius, and I have a lot of Libra friends. And the one thing about Libras is that, I definitely I get a very earthy, watery kind of vibe from Libras. Like, they're, very charming, and being, the ruler of being ruled by the seventh house and by Venus, right? There is still, this element of like wanting to harmonize with people, wanting to, be attached to a certain extent, wanting like the lovers, right? Like the ultimate lovers, whereas, other air signs like Aquarius and Gemini, sometimes we can be very detached. Sometimes that's the last thing on our minds is how to harmonize, and, we're more so about, asserting our ideas, our knowledge, our way of doing things, walking to the beat of our own drum. And Libra is really about like, how can we like blend these really beautiful energies together? Whereas Aquarius is like, how can we make things as ugly as possible to make people uncomfortable? So the Knight of Cups, right? The Knight of Cups is somebody who's very secure with holding their emotions, very secure with handing over their emotions, very secure with, approaching the object of their affection, right? And the Knight of Cups is approaching this Queen of Wands. So, a fire sign, a Leo, Sagittarius, or an Aries. And, like I said before, when I was doing the astrological profile, there is definitely, with Jupiter opposing Uranus and Uranus being in Aries, there could definitely, opposites attract, right? There could be a pull towards an Aries, which is your opposite sign, which is a sign that, like I said before, is not really about blending energies and harmonizing, but is more so about asserting the self, asserting the will, the recognition of ultimate independence, the recognition that I am here on my own, whereas Libra is like, we're all here together. So, a pull towards, or because this is how the cards are laid out, right? A pull towards and an attraction towards, that thing, that fiery energy, that fiery energy that maybe you need at this time with Uranus being in your 7th house. Maybe you need something different. Maybe you need this Aries energy, this fire energy. This, it doesn't have to be a fire sign or an Aries. It could just be somebody. The Queen of Wands is somebody who's very independent, very flamboyant, who is okay with being the center of attention, very warm-hearted. And, but she's also very, very independent and is about, she's she wants to assert her will. She wants to, assert who she is and all, the spirit and the energy that she has, right? So definitely, while there is definitely a situation, right, where there is, there's definitely a situation where there's disappointment, right? And there's this having to sow the seeds of disappointment into something bigger than, right? Into something that, you can create from and learn from and expand from. There's also a situation where, there's an attraction. Maybe this is like a situation where it's like, this is not working for me anymore and I want something new. I want a fiery, more independent energy. Like it's time, it's time for this more sort of, Aries, gung-ho energy to enter into the romantic sector. The Four of Swords, it could also be going to, the Four of Swords doesn't always have to be, some large, symbolic meaning. And, it could simply represent, the action of going to bed with this person, laying down with this person, or maybe feeling at peace, or maybe, the independence, right? Like this person, the Four of Swords is somebody who is at peace, with self-reflection, who's at peace with being by themselves, who is at peace. And also, the Four of Swords being underneath the Five of Pentacles, I'm seeing a relationship there where needing a break, wanting a break from, it's like these two people are kind of codependent. There's some codependency happening here. It's like, if I'm out in the cold, so are you. That's what I just heard in my head. Like if I'm in the cold, if I'm in the shit, so are you. If I'm in a bad place, and so are you, right? And wanting a break from that energy, wanting a break from that, codependence, wanting a break from that, I'm trying to think of another word besides codependent, but I think you get the point, right? Like wanting a break from like, oh God, like I'm tired of, there's this saying that it's like with codependency, it's like, you can put a thermometer in, my boyfriend's mouth and take my temperature, right? Like that there is just this inability to differentiate between the two and the states of the two. Like if I'm in a shitty mood, so are you, right? And just this desire to like, I just want some peace. I want some mental peace. I don't want to ruminate. I don't want to have to be so attached and clinged to what this other person is going through. This person is like super independent and they've got their own thing going on. And if I'm in a shitty mood, I'll be damned if they're gonna, if they're gonna, fall to my level and vice versa, right? Like, this reflection of this is no longer working for me, like this reflection, coming to these realizations of like, how can I grow new ideas of my sense of self and my self-worth, right? I think, the Empress card for me is a Taurus card because it's, being the Empress, being ruled by Venus, it's also speaks to the second house, and Taurus, second house, similar energies, self-worth, self-value. My computer went to sleep, sorry. Self-worth, self-value, how I view myself. How do I possess myself? Or do I need to possess other things in order to feel secure? Or am I in possession of myself? She possesses herself, right? So, this energy of, down and out, kind of flinging us into, well, where does my self-worth stand? And I can't keep doing this to myself anymore, right? And of course, right? Of course. Because these two aren't really that much different. And I see this more so as another person, right, coming in. I see this more so as a person that has an energy that you really admire. I've struggled personally with feeling independent in my life, especially with regard to being a woman and being independent and being in romantic relationships and being independent. And when I struggled at that time, now not so much. I feel pretty independent in my own self. But at the time, I really admired women and people who were really independent and did their own thing, right? So it's like the qualities that we feel that we're lacking, we can either admire them or we can become jealous of them. I suggest definitely stick to admiration, because then jealousy just introduces fear. But, maybe this is an energy that you're really admiring right now. And that makes a lot of sense because, Jupiter is opposing Uranus in your 7th house, right? And Jupiter is also asking you to really expand upon your sense of self and to really focus on self. And if you're going to be in relationships with Uranus in the 7th house, be in relationships that oppose, right? That are different from, that force you to expand your sense of self or your sense of what your previous beliefs of relationships were, right? This Aries independent energy, right? Like this energy of like, yeah, we can blend energies, but like, I'm going to do my own thing, right? Like this energy is very, very attractive to you, in this process of recognizing and deciding to let go of the codependency, right? Like this, like if you take my temperature, I'm basically reading yours too, kind of mentality, the codependency, right? Like in the depth of that, in the moving, in the procession away from that, in the procession into newness, into the sun rising, and into this new renewed sense of this change, this transformation, right? This death card, this Pluto in the 4th house, type energy, this, shaking of the foundations of what we find to be secure. 4th house isn't just home, it's where we find our security. 4th house is where we feel secure, and it doesn't have to just represent the physical home. It can represent emotional security, right? Like this might have been a place of emotional security for you before. But that's in doing this and the reflecting on, you're tired of this shit. You're tired of it, right? You're like, how can I sit on my thrones by myself? How can I link up? How can I get with these 3 energies, with these 3 baddies right here, right? The Queen of the Wands, the 9 of Pentacles, and the Empress. How can I link up with these really independent energies here? And how can I push myself and transform myself out of my comfort zones? How can I utilize the Plutonian energy in the fourth house of transformation, getting out of my comfort zone of what brings me security? This is not security, honey. This is not security. And how can I transform that so that I'm secure regardless? I'm secure no matter what, right? It's like the two of you together couldn't even have these 5 pentacles, couldn't even see these 5 pentacles. But you by yourself, you've got 9 and you've got more to come. So yeah, I really definitely felt that this was a relationship-based reading. And I think, Libra, and if you're in a relationship and it's working and there's not like a breakup in sight, definitely still asking yourself, like, well, how do I, even in this relationship that's working, how do I still manage to cling to this energy? And how can I transform away from that energy? How can I utilize Pluto in my 4th house right now so that, instead of being like this, because these are both 9s, right? So how can I move from the energy of the 9 of Wands, which is very, the 9 of Wands keeps going. The 9 of Wands, this person is like, yeah, I'll set up shop once again. But he's got bandages all over his head and he's looking scared. He's like, trying to see who's trying to run up on him right now, But this energy, this 9 of Pentacles, she's just like, oh, I love life and I'm not anxious about anything and I'm not afraid of anything and I'm not thinking about how things didn't work or aren't working, So it's like, if you're still carrying this energy in a relationship, in a current relationship, like how can you transform into this, right? And like the Empress, it's like, how can you spin the alchemy of like taking the hard lessons from this and spinning it into gold, right? And definitely an attraction, a huge attraction to energies that are really independent, really fiery, a little bit different than what you might have been used to, a little bit different than even your own constitution, as a Libra sun sign. And yeah, I really enjoyed doing this reading for you all, and I'm going to do an outcome card for you all for July 2017. And I do feel that this energy is going to continue into August. So don't be surprised if you come back in August and it's, similar messages. Oh, one flipped over. Yeah. When I was originally shuffling for you all, this card came out. And then I put it back and I was like, if you're meant to come back out, you'll come back out. The Ace of Cups, y'all, the Ace of Cups, new beginnings, new emotional beginnings. And it's not just a new beginning of, love, and it can definitely be new relationships, new love, new, that can definitely be it, but it can also represent a renewed sense of emotional well-being, a renewed sense of, security, a new idea of what emotionally sort of secures us, right? Like where we find that security in the watery 4th house, ruled by Cancer. So it looks really beautiful, Libra. But yeah, y'all are the alchemists this month. The alchemists. I hope you enjoyed your reading, and if you want a personal reading from me, you can contact me at tattoosandtarot@gmail.com. Or you can go to my website at tattoosandtarot.com and go to the reading section. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact me. All right, enjoy your month. Bye.